He's sitting beside Secretary Spring.
Right.
It's
Screwing it along.
Right.
I knew it wasn't you.
The Dolly,
Don't any confusion.
Rhonda's the Dalai Lama secretary. Yeah. Yeah, not David. His body's never been that bad out.
I did it one time.
You did.
Took me 2 hours. Not it.
All right. It is 7 o'clock. Oh, there's Mitch. Got on time. It is 7 o'clock, so I'll call the May meeting of the Hartsville-Trousdale County Planning Commission to order. Secretary to be, would you call the roll, please?
Heather Ray. Here. Thomas Harper. Joe Kerr.
Here.
David Nolan.
Here.
Carol Pruitt. Here. David Thomas.
Here.
Caleb Luck.
Oh, I'm here, yeah.
Mitch Gregory.
Here.
Ron Keesley.
Here.
It's good.
And Roseland.
I just, here?
Zone nine.
That's what we called it.
Okay, we do have a quorum tonight. Good to see everybody here. First thing on our agenda is approval of the April minutes. Everybody's had these now for plenty of time to go over them and see if there's any additions or corrections that needs to be made to them. Did anybody notice anything that needed to be corrected or added or whatever? Deleted? Hearing nothing, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as written.
Motion by Heather to approve the April minutes. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Thomas. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. It does pass unanimously. Any members have any changes to the agenda? Any changes? No. Anybody have anything to add or? Okay. So we have our agenda then set for tonight. There are no public hearings. There is no old business. So we'll get right on to our new business. First thing on our under new business is election of a planning secretary, for which we do not have an opening yet. Mr. Gregory has been fulfilling this job for several months and doing an excellent job at it. You really did. You've really done a really good job. But I believe you've said something about work and stuff. So you have the floor, Mr. Gregory.
Yes, I'm resigning.
Unless you want to keep it.
I'd like to resign if possible, just due to those circumstances.
As Mitch had told us previously with his expanded travel commitments with his job, there's times that he may not be able to be here. And especially times where he may not be around in order to sign plats and some things like that, you know. And so Mr. Gregory is resigning tonight. And I don't think we have to vote on that. I think we just accept his resignation. That's not the right one, Thomas. So we will accept Mr. Gregory's resignation. Next.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate David Nolan for secretary.
No, I'll jump in. No.
I was deciding on who to nominate, Mr. Nolan or Mr. Harper, for what they did to me last year.
We can give it to him right now. Yes, we can. We have a motion on the floor for Mr. Nolan, and I cannot just pass by a properly worded motion. Do I have a second? There's a chance, shut up. Do I have a second? Hearing no second, motion fails for lack of a second. That saved us a resignation. Any more nominations?
I would like to nominate Amanda.
Have a motion to nominate Amanda Carmen. as secretary. Have a second by Heather. Any other nominations?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that the nomination cease.
Have a motion that the nominations cease.
I'll second that.
Have a second by Ms. Pruitt, motion by Mr. Harper for that. All those in favor of Amanda Carmen being elected secretary of the Hartsville Trousdale County Planning Commission, say aye. Any opposed, please say no. It does pass unanimously as she did not vote against herself, as I have done on numerous occasions when being railroaded. All right, next item on our agenda is a rezoning request. A request to rezone from A1 to R1 by Jason Cook at 485 Templeoak Road to use different setbacks in the 7th Civil District. Is Mr. Cook here, or someone representing Mr. Cook here? If you come to the, if you don't mind, could you move that podium up? Sure. Like this. There you go. Please just state your name and then tell us what you got to say.
My name is Jason Cook, and I reside at 485 Pinto Road. Been there for, well, since the summer of '95. And we have endeavored to build an addition on the house, and I had started that. And we also want to do another portion of that addition. And looking at the setbacks, we discovered that the house is already set back 75 feet. Now, the addition that I'm working on now is at the 75-foot setback, so it's not a problem. But I want to extend the front of the house out essentially 8 feet, because it would also encompass the existing porch. So we would then be at a 67-foot setback. And that is what the request is about. It would be just for the first 16 foot of the northern end of the house. The rest of the house would still be at 75 feet, which, once I'm finished with the bill we're working on now, is 56 feet. So when you're talking about 40 feet, it's still at this 75-foot setback. I've been told that there are numerous other parcels in the area nearby that are already zoned R1, and really shouldn't be a problem.
Anything else, Mr. Cook?
That'd be all.
Any members have any questions for Mr. Cook? Okay. Heather?
Gotcha.
You do bad.
I'll take it as a compliment. So just for some additional context, so this is an application for 2 acres located at 485 Templo Road, which is tax map 16, parcel 6.17. The request is from A1 agriculture forestry to R1 residential. So the surrounding properties are mostly zoned A1 agriculture. Property is not within the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District. However, a 4-inch water line is located along Templo Road, and the property does not have access to public sewer. Templo Road is identified as a collector street per the major thoroughfare plan. I've included in your notes, as always, the description for the A1 zoning district as well as the R1 zoning district. I don't typically include setbacks, but I'll just give you, I've pulled them up here. Front setbacks for the R1 district are 30 feet, rear setbacks are 25, and side setbacks are 15 feet for a 1 or 2 story structure plus 10 additional feet for each additional story. So for the R1 district, for the size of 2 acres, that would allow for a maximum density of 5 single family or 2 duplex lots with public water and sewer, or 2 single family or 5 duplex lots with public water but without public sewer. However, as you guys can see in the map that I've provided in the aerial image, the road frontage on this property is quite narrow, so, and that 5 acres would require a street be built, which, so just making that, that density highly difficult to achieve.
Anybody have questions for Keelan? Questions, period?
Well, I think maybe Rosalie can answer that. On the application, it's listed as 2 acres on lot size. Is it 2 or 5?
It's 2 acres for that parcel. He owns an additional parcel, so that's not what's asking to be, so just this one parcel.
So there's two different parcels of land, deeded parcels. He wants to rezone just the 2 acre parcel that the house is on, and he has additional property to do that, instead of that. Is that correct, Mr. Cook?
That is correct, yes.
Questions, other questions, discussion?
I do want to point out too that with this being the month of May and it started our new rezoning process, we have in there in your packet a picture of the rezoning sign that has been placed on this property and will remain there until the second reading in the county commission.
Ms. Rosalie, do you have comments about this report? Other than what Peter?
Explain that again. Just explain about the 2 acre, the 2 parcel.
If you look at your map, he has the one parcel that has the house on it, which is set close to the road. Well, it looks like it's close to the road, but it's not. Yes, sir, the one that the aerial map. And then the one that's next to that one, that's in blue, that is rated A-1, he also owns that parcel of land. But he doesn't want to rezone that parcel, it's the parcel that he has his house on.
So this is, A1 and not R1, being that it is 2 acres.
Yes, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I was running through that in my head and about to start diving through the ordinance. A1, for A1, the minimum is 3 acres, right?
Actually, it's 2 acres if you have fire protection and public water.
He has both of those.
There is a 4-inch water line. So typically that can provide, that's like the minimum to provide fire. I don't have a letter from the water department confirming.
Discrepancy on a parcel number.
This one shows 3 acres and the other one shows 2 acres.
Are you looking at the aerial?
Yeah.
Disregard the aerial. That's from Tennessee Property Viewer and it's not often accurate.
So the aerial map is a good one to kind of show you where it is and how it sits and everything. But as far as the number of acres, it's not very accurate, so don't go by that for the acreage.
So it is the long one. It's highlighted in the.
Yes, ma'am.
It is that one. That one is 2 acres as these property lines show. That's the 2 acres that we're discussing.
Other questions, discussion? While you're thinking, if you have any questions or not, of course, this is a rezoning request. There are 3 things that we can do to this. We can, 1, send it to the county commission with an approval from this body. We can send it to the county commission disapproved from this body, or we can just send it to the county commission. Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion to send it with a favorable approval.
Have a motion by Mr. Thomas, send it to the county commission with a favorable approval. Have a second by Mr. Gregory. Any other discussion and or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion does pass. Mr. Cook, I would assume This would be on this one.
It sure is.
Are you aware of the next steps?
Not exactly.
Okay. This now goes to the Trousdale County Commission.
Okay.
They meet the fourth Monday of every month, providing everything gets turned in on time, which I'm sure it will. Ms. Mosley is very efficient. Your first hearing would be the fourth Monday in this month.
Okay.
I would advise you to be there
Okay.
to answer any questions or anything like that. You don't have to, but I would advise it.
Sure.
And then it has to pass on 2 readings. So if it were to pass that night, then it final would be on a month later on the fourth Monday of June.
Okay.
And there'll be a public hearing at that last meeting.
Okay.
And this month is a special month because Memorial Day is on
Oh, okay. So
that Monday, so it'll be on that May 22nd.
Okay.
And I'll make sure to send you an email.
And then that would be where?
Here.
Right here.
Okay. All right, very good.
You might be able to help me with this. So if, for whatever reason, his rezoning were to fail, because the only reason he's wanting to do the rezone is because of the setback, could he not go before the BZA and get a variance for that setback?
Yep, absolutely welcome.
So
You just
this
have to.
is your options.
Yep, and you just have to present your case to the Board of Zoning Appeals as to why it is necessary, why that would limit your use of the property, those sorts of things. We can discuss it later, yeah.
And from my understanding, the only issues with the Board of Zoning Appeals is since they lack enough members to meet, so this would be your quickest route is through the county commission, which you, like David said, that's kind of like a backup route, you never know how the county commission's gonna go.
Plan B.
Yeah, it's good to have other options, is the point I'm trying to make. Okay,
Well, thank you very much.
you're welcome. Next on our agenda is a site plan approval for an RV campground by Chris Barber on Highway 25 and Highway 231, located in the 6th Civil District. Is Mr. Barber here, or anyone representing Mr. Barber?
Even Chris Barber, Rock Wall RV and campground proposed, which I would like is an environmentally friendly, large green spaced area. Like look at the site map, you can see there's a lot of space between the RV spots. I'm going with the whole less is more theory. I want larger spaces, not all packed in like a typical campground, typical RV park. And also, from my studies, the majority of the RV parks were done and built in the 60s through the 80s. They do not accompany the larger, more modern units of today, which my park would definitely have. There's plenty of green space in the front, on the sides, large meadow in the middle. Very scenic, very nice, very quiet. We've talked with Solar America about going with solar LED lights for plenty of lighting, along with a solar backup system for each site. It will be costly, but that's our end goal, is to be about as carbon neutral as possible in the future. Our wooded area is very nice for walking, trails, relaxing. We propose to put a deli and eatery in there as well for our customers and of course all the residents as well. You can probably tell by my accent from up north, and we would like to bring our style of food here. It's roast beef sandwich, hot pastrami, lasagna, etc. Plus large breakfast sandwiches. I think it would be very beneficial to the community. I've talked to several small business owners myself. Peter's gas station is all for it, right next to me. Manager of Dollar General is excited. Plain Jane's, spoke with them, they're very happy. Fitness Farm in Castaic Springs is very excited about it. They have numerous traveling guests and have all the RV parks are full. So of course, all the local grocery stores, this would be taco company, La Quesadilla. I spoke to these folks. Everybody's very happy. Our location on the corner of 231 and 25, as it connects, is excellent for travelers going north and south. A lot of the state parks are full on the weekends, and they're reserved for 6 to 8 months in advance. And then there is a severe lack of RV parking countrywide, actually. COVID in 2020, RV sales jumped over 60%, and the RV campgrounds and stuff just couldn't keep up. A lot of folks, as you know, are working remotely now. A lot of travelers from out of state, all over the country, come to work at TVA. As you folks know, our prison hires people from everywhere. There's a new water plant project in Red Bull Springs. A lot of workers are coming in for that. Facebook, and there's simply no spots available for these traveling folks. Not to mention all the people that want to come visit, us from this area. Say Uncle Bob from Michigan wants to come down and visit for the holidays with his RV. I think it'd be very beneficial, very environmentally friendly, and very nice and peaceful for the community. And this will definitely bring in business and tax dollars. Not to mention, if somebody comes here, say from out of state, stays for a while, visits, oh gosh, we'd like to buy some property around here. It could very easily happen.
And if I'm not mistaken, this is, we're currently on this property, a truck company.
Trucking company. We've only got 3 trucks.
That's fine, I'm just making sure everybody
Yeah.
knew where we were. That's how I know that.
Yeah, I've been in trucking too long. This is my retirement plan.
Okay,
And we know trucks and RVs don't mix, trucks will leave.
yeah, okay.
That was one of the requirements from your.
Yeah, the trucks are going. Honestly, sooner the better. It'll be very, very nice once.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Barber?
Term or like short term, you're only gonna, so long that they're there, or, are you gonna allow them to be able
I can't say that for sure because contracts, workers for TVA, boilermakers, welders, fabricators, electricians, they may be there for months. Same with Facebook.
So there is a requirement under the development standards that no camping vehicle or camping equipment shall be used for human habitation for a period exceeding 30 consecutive days. So they would have to leave for a time every 30 days.
Were you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Oh. I wasn't.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How would that be?
You see your problem with the gas line going through there?
No, actually, I looked at it as a benefit, to be honest with you, because it's a nice, beautiful meadow view.
And that was my concern also, looking on your drawing, you have 5 slots there for proposed parking, but you don't have anything showing your parking up by the restaurant area.
Actually, parking for the restaurant, it is not
No.
Yes, it is. The parking will actually be in front of the restaurant. I'm sorry, it's not. No, that's good.
Yeah.
What's this area right here?
That is all. That's even like.
I can't.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Right here.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
all.
septic.
Yeah, I think that's where it's.
Right
What about where it says existing building?
It's septic here.
No, it's down towards Highway 25.
Yeah.
It says existing
But that's what it says.
building. I'm sorry.
But that's what it is, septic area. Apparently,
Well-
All I see is, the vehicles
Yeah, I don't see
This
anything
exit
for
right
like
here is
public
coming out,
parking.
then I'll.
at the restaurant.
Right.
I'm sorry?
Heather has a question.
Yes, your water line is not furnished by Castaic Springs, so that means the yours. What is your plan for the water?
loosely,
It's,
has a-
it's under
yeah, I've
time.
got,
There should be something in your packet there.
Did I miss the next thing?
Yes, it was.
It does have water.
Do you have this,
Picture that.
Heather? Heather,
Have
you-
available, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I mean, here's a letter from Benny, is what I'm holding up.
Yeah.
But you do realize that that's the developer,
Nope.
the developer's cost to get it.
commercial, yeah,
I'm pulled up the lines, you got a little ways to go.
yeah, it's expensive.
Rosalie, has the private campground, text amendment for the zoning ordinance, has that been through the council?
As far as the restaurant,
Yeah, so,
yes, that has passed.
okay. By the time that this was submitted, was it passed?
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, we may need to require that there is additional parking, so.
That's what I was asking, parking at the restaurant.
Mhm.
I knew that we had been talking about things like that from down at Boat Dock, what I still call the Boat Dock. And
Yeah, that did pass. So there used to be where it said explicitly, you could only cater to those on your property that are staying there. That was removed. The commission removed that, so anyone can come and eat at the restaurant.
Exactly.
That being said, you've got to have parking for those people. And there's requirements. That now becomes a commercial entity. You've got to meet the requirements for that business.
Okay.
and I just didn't see any on,
Yeah, there's
on
none,
the site plan.
notated.
Okay, so would the parking go on the capacity of the restaurant, or
How many of your restaurant plan on seating?
maybe tops one?
Yeah, so the requirement for restaurants is you're required to have not less than one space per 150 square feet of floor area plus one space for each two employees. And the rest is for drive-throughs, so. Yeah, one per 150 plus one for every two employees.
Okay. I just want to swing
Due to the fact that the building is, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Due to the fact that the building is multi-use, how would that be? Is
Well-
that just for the restaurant's use, 150 feet?
It says of floor area, so I believe it's sanitary facilities, right? So it's gonna be a restaurant with bathrooms.
Yes.
Right, so then my assumption would be that it goes by, this just says feet of floor area. It doesn't specify if it's commercial use area or if it's leasable area, some places do, so my strict reading of the zoning ordinance would be for the entire building.
I didn't know if that meant also for the White, like a White House.
My question would be, since no parking spaces are noted, and this is up for final approval, I hate to approve something on final, and not very here.
Why is this coming as final approval? It's the
It's a
first time
site
we've
plan.
seen
It's a
this.
site plan.
So-
It's not
a
final.
model plan.
Oh, okay,
Site.
okay. So it got time to come back with it, okay.
To be honest, I'm looking at the restaurant down the road. This isn't gonna be anything immediate.
You gonna make me hungry with all that good food.
Design.
Sorry, I'm thinking time.
Sure, this is trying to get it.
Yeah, I get hungry easy.
Go finish your steak for you.
Just out of curiosity, do you plan this as a phase, do you plan to phase this out, or do you plan to go in and just curious,
So I do everything as I can afford, so it's,
based on the.
I'm not gonna go and borrow 500,000 to do everything. It'll be a slow process.
Still no ways.
Do you know which side of the road you plan to, just for mine, the Highway 25 side or the Highway 231 side?
25 cents.
25.
If I'm not mistaken, you've already started grading
Yes.
part of that already.
Other questions?
What did you say you were gonna name this?
Rock
park?
wall.
Rock Wall RV
RV.
Park?
Mr. Chairman, one other question.
Yes,
So if you are gonna do this in phases and looking at the way you've got the drawing, so you're saying you're wanting to start with the 25 area,
Yes.
so but you're gonna take that all the way back to your septic field and your sanitation.
The 25 area,
Yeah.
as far as septic goes, will be 300-gallon RV tanks.
Okay.
Pump down.
Okay.
These are existing
I'm curious on how you're gonna do the phasing, how it gets broke up.
Right.
Honestly,
So,
I plan
they're
on doing
existing
5
lots.
at a time.
This is just a second.
The plats are only for if you're
Do five,
combining or dividing.
phase five.
So this is the
Right.
last time we'll see this, if we
Yeah.
ever don't find.
So I was just trying to look, Rosalie,
And Mr.
we
Barber,
don't have a
if you
preliminary
could take
site plan and a
note
final
that,
site plan, correct?
I'm showing, is
So
it
this
18
will be
units you
the-
have?
Yes,
So there are county regulations for
Right,
water.
but if they
some
approve it
things
today,
that may not
it'll be-
match Castalian Springs. So, I'm gonna ask, since sit on that seat in the water board, that you bring and be prepared for, us to question that in the future, for your next time you come to us.
the water,
Because the county regulations require, I believe it's 18 units. If you exceed any more than the 18, if you exceed a certain amount of units, then you're responsible to have so many tap, an additional meter, those kind of things. And so just make sure that those match. And if they don't match, even though you're using Castalian water, the county may differ from,
I can happily stay under 18 units.
just confirm.
If
that that's
if
what the-
that'll work. Again, less is more.
And I understand, but I just want to make sure that you know that sometimes the county water does not match what another county water service is providing.
I see.
So you'll just check those boxes.
In talking with the ladies up here, this is the last time we'll see this. There won't be a plat or anything come back. So should this committee decide that they would like to see something with parking spots or something like that, then you would not want to give final approval to this tonight. You would want, and I'm saying if that's your desire, you would want for him to come back with a more detailed site plan, just for your knowledge. Ms. Thomas, did you have a question?
Well, I know we've had some issues with some subdivisions that have been done in phases where things have not been finished from the first phase because, you know, they were planning on doing other phases and those phases haven't even started or got altered. My concern with this particular project is the way it is drawn here, done in phases, we run into some of those same problems. And I'd hate to have a mess on the county's hands the way this is proposed right now. Maybe if it was brought back, shown how the phases would want to be implemented, so that we could have something to kind of go by on that. Not having the parking for the restaurant, definitely I think is something that needs to be on here. If it's not gonna come back before us again, we need to have everything in, all the ducks are in a row, right, you know, when we vote on it, instead of.
Whatever motion is made, I think if a motion is made to approve, then obviously this is it. If a motion is made for it to come back, we should give this gentleman as much foreknowledge as we can as to what you want to see as far as besides parking spots, how much in one phase, phase two, phase, ever how many phases there are. But we should give this gentleman enough to go by so he can come back with a more detailed plan.
Can we table the restaurant for future?
I think that the site plan issues extend past just the restaurant. Because there's discussion of interior roads, or additional landscaping screening may be required for the campsites. I think it's actually more than just the restaurants, what we're seeing. It looks like
It needs to be more detailed.
it's just not ready. It's
Green.
just not ready.
In any phase thing, there is a time limit that if it's not completed, you have to come back before us, am I right?
Give her a minute to look that up.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think
Let her
so.
look, we'll just let her look that up, and we'll see if anybody else has. And I also wanted to ask if there's anybody in the audience tonight that would like to speak to this project.
I will.
Okay. Please, yes, please come up and give your name and everything so we can get it in the minutes.
Yeah, my name is Bernie Vaughn.
Your name again, please?
Bernie Vaughn,
Thank you.
yes. I've lived here in Trousdale County for over 50 years with my family. We moved out 4 years ago for work. Love it out here, love the area. My son and I decided we were going to get into RV. And it's a beautiful spot that Mr. Chris has. It's picturesque, love the area, love to come back. He's a great gentleman. It's a beautiful area out here. And just probably everything I wanted to say. I look forward to hopefully him getting his approval, because I would love to come back to this fine county.
Sounds good. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't see. No, go ahead. You're close. We'll, the gentleman.
It's a long walk.
Yes, sir.
My name's Bill Robertson. I know several of you here. You've took care of my children for many years in school.
Don't hold that against me.
They turned out good, so we're good so far. I've known Chris a couple of years now, and he's helped me out on some items and stuff in building my bus. And when I had moved away for a couple of years, Mom passed, Dad's on the farm by himself. You know how it is living with your parents, you know. So I'm in and out. I work for my bus, and I travel. And this has been the best place I've ever parked. I mean, it's just great. You know, you've got access to the town. I come to the restaurants, to the grocery store, see all my friends and stuff. So I've lived here for 39 years. And I really think he ought to do this. I think this is something great for the county. It's a positive for Trousdale County and Hartsville. And you know, like you said, we get more people in here, they buy more property, more tax dollars, more businesses will come into town, especially the people who do the work. Mitch knows he travels. And finding a place that's safe and secure, where you're not having to worry at night that somebody's gonna break in, is worth its weight in gold, especially nowadays. So, and Chris runs a clean place out there. He's very personable. Never seen him in an argument. I've never had a crossword with him. So, you know, that's the kind of people we need in this county. So, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, everyone. My name is Stanley Hughes. Same deal. Met Chris a little while ago. So I am one of the workers that's being mentioned. I graduated in 2015. I've been traveling now ever since. I've been everywhere from Maine to California, and I've worked on all sorts of different projects. I'm an engineer for a construction company based out of Bozeman, Montana, even though I'm originally from Pennsylvania. As everybody's mentioned, it's very hard to find a good place to stay. This area seems to be extremely busy. Even though we love it, sometimes you gotta hate it a little bit. As you get closer to Nashville, sometimes the traffic's a little chaotic. So it makes Trousdale County very attractive. Recently married, my wife and I, when we found out about the project that was currently on at TDA, we got very excited. We want to come to the area. We spent some time down in Pickwick, Tennessee. Really loved it down there, loved the community, loved the people, and it's proven to be the same thus far here. She lives in Pennsylvania, so we haven't had time to really search the area and look for somewhere to live on our own or property to buy. But in the meantime, I needed somewhere safe and a place to rest my head some of the hours that we cool at this point. Thus far, in communication with Chris about his future plans, really line up with all of the attributes that we look for when we're out traveling. We've stayed in some risky areas. We've stayed in some fabulous areas. What I've come to find is a good RV park will attract good guests, and we police our own. We look out for one another. We tend to maintain our areas and treat them as if they're our own, whether that's picking weeds or putting flower plants out, or my wife always tends to find some cute little flag outside. It's our home away. Now, our grand plans would be to stay in the area, find our little piece of heaven, with the land or a dog run around and all that kind of stuff. But in the interim, I would greatly support Chris and his plans. I think it would be quite an attraction. Furthermore, as Bill had mentioned, having family, having a place for people to come and stay. My parents now are getting to the point where they're retiring and they have an RV of their own. it's like, hey, we want to come visit, but sometimes you just don't have enough space for your family. Having somewhere where they can come, set up shop, stay a little while, and get to sort of embrace the area with us is something that we would really look forward to, especially in looking to stay with us in the woods. So I greatly support Chris and have offered him all sorts of insight on the do's and don'ts of RV parks that we've stayed in the past. Look forward to what we might bring to the area.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Ellen Millette. I'm also my husband and art owner. We travel across Canada, and I'm also and what we found last year when we were traveling, one of the places that we stayed at was very similar to what Chris is proposing. And it was absolutely the most wonderful place we stayed at throughout the whole trip. Now, I've known Chris for a lot of years. And sometimes we see eye to eye, sometimes we don't. Always excited together. But for the most part, he has good intentions. What he's proposing is a service that is in demand. So I told him, I want 100% behind him. I wish he would go to the restaurant first. That's all the people experience would. So you really don't have any business.
Got a pretty good drive.
Yeah, I mean, we have to come out of the farmer's market here in Hartsville. And Gallatin doesn't have the wall. So if you want at the restaurant, maybe skip the RVs.
And I need to change my train of thought.
No. No, but there is a demand for what he is offering. So I'm totally 100%.
Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't doubt the need for this facility in the county, a facility. I think my concern is this not being detailed enough, and the idea of it being built in phases without it specifically outlined how those phases are gonna go. I really don't think the county wants another campground like we have at Pine Cove, which we're constantly having to fight zoning ordinances and issues there. And so I just would like to see, because of where the location is, which I think is a prime location, I'd like to see it be a little more detailed so that we can make sure that it does become exactly what these individuals are wanting it to be, and that it meets all of our standards, so that when he, as he does his phases, it is able to be an asset to the county and be profitable for him at the same time.
Well, one thing that stuck out to me when Keelan was talking about the resolutions that y'all had passed, not, I guess, just several months ago,
Yeah.
Because of dealing with situations at another campground in the county, rules were made and things come. You didn't seem to be aware of that 30 days and everything. So depending on what happens, I would get with either one of these ladies so they could email you that. So as I said earlier, I want you to have all pertinent knowledge that you would need.
Yes.
So when you come back, if that's the will of this body, that, so you could have that ready.
I would definitely like to do it in phases.
I understand that. I'm kind of like that lady. I kind of like the restaurant first. I'm just, that's a selfish statement on my part.
French toast and eggs are good.
What do you plan on the time frame, Steve?
So there's nothing in the zoning ordinance about phasing of development. However, the county does have the ability to drop a development agreement where they would detail the phasing, what improvements are done each phasing, what kind of confirmation is required before you can sort of check it off. There's also the possibility of performance bond which is when the developer will put up the money at a specified amount. It's often like 120% of the estimated cost. We'll provide a bond to the city, and then the city will release that money once it is confirmed that those improvements have been done to the standard of the county. Sorry, I keep saying city, county. So that's also another possible thing. There's not a ton of details within the zoning ordinance itself, so that would be something that would have to be worked up with Rosalie or whoever.
That's what I was about to say. Depending on how this goes tonight, I think Chris definitely needs to get with Ms. Rosalie and find out. As I said, I want you to have everything that you need to know.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, would you like me to go through?
I was going to ask if you want to go ahead and give your report.
Sure, yeah. So it sounds like we've had a lot of discussion about the comments that were in your packets. I have included the development standards for private campgrounds, which is where that 30 days requirement is stated. That is in the zoning ordinance, so it's available if you're interested in looking at it. In going through the site plan, the couple of things that we're missing, so we've requested that they indicate the name of the campground. It sounds like it has been named, but we just want to see that on here. To please include a note that each campsite will include one picnic table. There's also much of the existing vegetation, sort of in that northwest corner of the property, will be removed to accommodate these campsites. So we would need to confirm that additional landscape screening may be required. I know it says it intends existing vegetation to be used as a screening there. We would just need to make sure that whatever is removed, whatever remains, meets those standards. We've also asked that they provide the required screening along the western property line to screen the adjoining property from views of the southern section of campsites, so the campsites closest to Highway 25. We've also requested that they provide screening along the right-of-way of Highway 231 within view of the northern section. So I hope that those directions make sense. We've also requested that they include the dimensions of all interior roads, whether or not they'll be one or two-way traffic, and all turning radii. Each campground is also required to provide a trailer dump station for the disposal of holding tank sewage, and that was not indicated on the site plan. And it sounds like from discussions that there's also a request for including a proposed phasing line of where those improvements will be made in each phase. And then there is a requirement for public parking for that restaurant, and that will need to meet the restaurant parking standards out of the zoning ordinance, which, as we said, was 150 feet, or one space per 150 feet, and one space for every 2 employees.
Sounds good. I would like to add one other. I was looking at the site plan. The way he has the road going up the west side of the property, he actually has a section of the road going into his vegetation screening area. So that'll need to be moved out of that, would it not?
So the vegetation screening is only required to screen adjacent properties from views of campsites. So because that goes across the entire property, there's no campsites there, so that would not require screening. That's why we have the additional screening requested for the right-of-way and some of the other properties, just to ensure that those campsites are completely screened from view.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to decline this, or not to accept this site plan.
It can be deferred.
That's what I was going to say. Chris himself said something about tabling it and everything, so proper verbiage here would be deferred.
Instead of it being on record that we decline,
Yeah, we don't want to, exactly.
I'm not wanting to shoot it down.
That's too negative. I don't want to use the word decline. Let's use the word defer.
So I would like to defer this site plan until he can bring back a more detailed site plan addressing the issues that have been cited by Keeling and brought up during this meeting.
I have a motion by Mr. Thomas, and I heard a second, but I don't know who said, and a second by Ms. Carmen. Any other discussion?
We're writing a list of everything.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know we've discussed quite a few things, but I think you should get a list of what we need.
I agree. I think If we get you can email this to him and stuff, you just need an email address, right, am I right? Or
Yes.
Rosalie can.
Yep, we can get him.
And Mr. Barber, I want to thank you for bringing this opportunity to you and including the jobs. And I'm very grateful that you had 4 people stand up for that.
I'm happy to do this
I think it's a very worthwhile project and a very needed project. And that's why I didn't want anything, a negative word to be attached to it, because I don't think it was meant that way. And so.
And I'll add the comments, my intent is that this commission not forward anything on to the county court that is not something that they should have right to approve.
This wouldn't go to the county court.
I mean, to go.
Okay. All right. Any other questions and or discussion? We do have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Chris, before you leave, if you can get your email to these ladies. You already have it. Okay. Appreciate you coming, appreciate your project, and appreciate all those of you that came and talked and everything. And I'm looking forward to that food.
Remember, we make flapjacks, not pancakes.
I've never had a flapjack, I don't think. That I know of. Big on pancakes, though.
Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thanks again.
Yeah, we just when he's ready.
Well, so a deferral has to go back. Yes, so you defer it to the next month. He can choose to withdraw it, where he's waiving his 60-day requirement. So once he submits it, the planning commission has to make a decision. Yeah, unless he chooses to waive that, which he can withdraw it in writing to you.
And that's why I made the wording of just referring until he has the information to bring back. I didn't want to give him a deadline. I can do it at his convenience. I know that gets expensive sometimes having drawings.
Okay. Mr. Rouse, the reason why I brought up the timeline, the subdivision outside of St. John Baptist Church, it was in 2 phases.
3 actually.
Well, 3 phases, well, but didn't they have to come back to us because they didn't start that other phase in time? It came back to us.
Well, he did come back, but I don't think he had ever presented a second phase. He did the first phase, and it was there for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And then he saw how housing was selling and quickly and everything, and then he decided to come back and present a phase 2. And we discussed the phase. That's what I was gonna say, nothing's there, he has a.
He had to bring a preliminary back.
He had to bring a preliminary.
He had to bring, okay, so the phases were designed, and then he had to bring a preliminary on phase 2.
But the time had run out on that, for
Yeah, I think we've only got, you've only got like 3 years to bring up.
That's right.
To present after 3 years, I think you had to re-present.
I think so.
He's done nothing to my knowledge.
That's the reason why I was asking that question.
But that's about a year ago.
Yeah, he hasn't.
His time's not up.
Right.
I know, but not on the second term, but it was on the first time.
Yes.
Right.
We have an issue still with, I'm still trying to decipher how we have to remedy it. But at Hickory Ridge subdivision, that first phase, there's supposed to be a cul-de-sac put in at the end of that road. And the zoning officer at that time let him do just a temporary one shy of where the cul-de-sac was supposed to go in order for him to build phases, because he was going to connect that over to Acorn. Then he came back in and decided, well, he's not going to connect that to Acorn. We approved that, but he's never built the cul-de-sac at the end.
He's never finished off the cul-de-sac on the original.
So the county took over the road, but the road ends where the pavement ends. cul-de-sac's never actually been built, so it's not the county's. So who do we hold responsible for that cul-de-sac?
Have to be the developer, the property owner, that's the.
Yeah. Because now the temporary cul-de-sac has been done away with because the lots have gone all the way up to the end of the paved road now. So there isn't a temporary one there now either. And that's an issue I have with us approving things done in phases without having it stated what's gonna be done in each phase.
That's a very good point.
Because now we get stuck in a situation like this
Where you and your neighbors are
you don't have
actually,
school buses turning around.
well, that and it's y'all's responsibility to do whatever legal action is necessary to
But
continue.
according to his site plan, he agreed to do that. He agreed to the county that that would be done. So is that still not a county issue that we should enforce?
Sounded to me like a question for the mayor.
Yeah.
Or the county attorney, I would think, through the mayor.
I've talked to Bill Scruggs, and he's looking about getting an estimate of what it's gonna cost for the county to do it. Lord knows there won't be any need for gravel, there's enough rock there on that bluff, it'll provide gravel for a lot of other projects, but yeah, just, that's my concern with doing.
I agree,
things in phases.
and I think you're
Have that
right.
information.
And we've had too many things brought, rezoning for that, and never started. And they're just sitting out there. And that can come back to bite you. Yes, sir.
May I butt in just a
Yes,
second?
sir.
Just so we understand where we're at, this is, I understand the discussion y'all are having totally about, but this site plan, there's no public infrastructure concerning this. This is, a phase of this is like him running a water line, that's a private water line. There's no public aspect to this as far as the county will be on the hook for it, okay? I just want to make sure you understand these are not public roads, not public water lines, not public anything.
Yeah, he's not gonna be asking the county to
Building,
take over
yes,
the
what he's
road or
building there,
anything.
everything will be private. This is a site plan for an RV park, and so it is all contained as an RV park. This is not like being set up to be sold as individual lots or anything like that, so there's no public aspect to this.
That's a good point. Thank you, Chief. Very good point. Feel free to please. No, really, it helps here, things like that. Some, you know. Okay, moving on. Next on our agenda, site plan, is the Maples A Tiny Home Community by Beach One Properties LLC on Old Halltown Road for 59 units on 5.01 acres, and this is located in the 7th Civil District. Mr. Beach, been a long time.
Yes, sir. When we came before for the rezone, we wasn't really sure what we had in mind to do, but after doing some thinking, we decided to do tiny homes, make it a little more affordable for people. From really, Mr. Dillahey had to be out of town, so he could tell you a lot more about what we're doing, and I can. Want to do it the way that the county asked it to be done, whatever the ordinance is already in place. I don't really have a lot to say, other than if I can be helpful to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay.
Needs to be sold or?
No, sir, not to be sold.
They're gonna go and rent them out.
No, oh, yes, sir, the homes will be sold, but the land will not be sold. Be like an HOA.
I misunderstood that. I'm glad you cleared that up.
Land lease coming.
Just something of that sort, whatever suffices that we can do, whatever is feasible.
So the houses will not be on permanent foundations? They'll be mobile?
Whatever the county says it has to be done, that's what will be done.
Well, depending on what you do, whether it's mobile or fixed, depends on what we.
So you tell me how you like me to do it.
Hey, Rose.
Explain that again, you said the houses are being sold, yes, the land will not.
Yes, sir, correct. And to answer your question as well, I mean, just like a mobile home, they do have wheels that can be put on, removed, strapped to the ground permanently for a short period of
So
time.
it's kind of almost like an RV, but with a tiny home.
No, it's a house, I mean, it is a tiny home, it's in the ordinance of the
But
Travis
it's got
County.
wheels, just like a mobile home is.
No, ma'am, they don't have wheels on there.
You said they could have them.
Whatever you got.
Ever how they decide to move it, I guess, would be up to them.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Should they decide to move, they purchased a home, 10 years from now, they decide to move it, or how they move it,
Yes, sir.
is their responsibility.
Yes,
Am I
sir.
saying that right?
Yes, sir.
That's where I'm getting at.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the square footage being built?
The county says it can't be over 400 square feet.
If y'all remember, Mayor Chambers, when he was mayor, dug into this, I guess we're looking at 4 years ago, 4 years ago, and so the county does have, this is in our.
That's the reason we even started, it was brought to us, we didn't dream it up.
And my recollection is that we didn't do anything because we just looked at where we already had mobile home park regulations and just grouped it in as that. So
I honestly don't know, it's been so long.
Well, we've had a
So
lot
I
of
would like to
discussion
see
about
the-
this, so I'd be happy to run it.
Okay, let's let Keely
let's do that.
explain.
Absolutely. So we've run through these discussions and scenarios. So so just to go through it one more time. So it's a site plan approval for the Maples, which is a tiny home community by Beach One Properties on Old Halltown Road. They are proposing 59 units on 5.01 acres. So let me see, the property is zoned R3, which is our high density residential. So mobile home parks are allowed by special exception within the R3 zoning district. The surrounding properties are zoned for residential and industrial uses. The property is within the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District. A 6-inch water line and an 8-inch sewer line are located along the margin of Old Halltown Road. And Old Halltown Road is considered a collector street. So as we kind of alluded to, this project has been determined that it is going to be considered as a mobile home park. That is because, and I've included in your zoning notes, the definitions of a mobile home park. So, or the definitions of a mobile home. So a mobile home dwelling means a detached one-family dwelling with all of the following characteristics. So it is designed for a long-term occupancy and containing sleeping accommodations, a flush toilet, a tub or shower bath, and kitchen facilities with plumbing and electrical connections provided for attachment to outside systems. It's constructed on a single self-contained unit and mounted on a single or combined, Rosalie, how did you pronounce it? Chassis? That S at the end is crazy. Or combined chassis, transportable after fabrication on its own wheels or detachable wheels. So that answers that question. It does have to be constructed elsewhere and brought in on wheels. They can be removed, but it has to be mobile on wheels. And it must arrive at the site where it is to be occupied as a complete unit, including major appliances and furniture and ready for occupancy, except for minor and incidental unpacking and assembly operations, location on foundation supports, connection to utilities and the like. So in our discussions, it was determined that these houses would meet those three requirements. So therefore, this would be reviewed under the development standards for a mobile home park. And so just to briefly discuss the permitting and the approval procedure for a mobile home park. So the application for a mobile home park permit must be filed with the building inspector after the applicant has secured all the water and sewer permits required. However, construction or extension of a mobile home park may not commence within the area of jurisdiction of this ordinance until a mobile home park building permit has been issued by the building inspector. A mobile home park building permit may be issued only upon approval of the special exception by the Hartsville Board of Zoning Appeals. The board shall act upon the application for a permit after receipt of a report from the Hartsville-Trousdale County Planning Commission. So this, the Planning Commission must review the site plan for the development standards. They will then provide a report to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which will make a final determination on whether or not this is an acceptable special exception within the R3 zoning district. So the board may attach whatever conditions it sees fit to the Planning Commission. So yeah, the board shall act upon an application for a permit after receipt of a report from the Hartsville-Trousdale County Planning Commission. The board may attach whatever conditions it sees fit to the permit in order to protect the neighborhood and or adjoining properties. So I've included then all of the other development standards for a mobile home park. It was reviewed under that number 2 site plan required. And all of the development standards have been checked against the proposed site plan. So we run down here. The following issues were identified. So we've requested that they please include the address of the owner, that they show the location of the FEMA flood zone A that is located on the property and reference the applicable FEMA FERB map. It is just a tiny little blip, but we do need to see it. Include dimensions of the cul-de-sac, include dimensions of the right-of-way and the pavement of the existing street. So that is gonna be Old Halltown Road, right? We do need to, they do need to include the size of the proposed water and sewer lines, show the location of all garbage disposal containers. Solid waste collection stands may be provided for waste containers for each mobile home or tiny home. Any central waste containers shall be screened from view with access appropriately provided. They must show location of all sidewalks. A common walk system is required to be provided and maintained between locations where pedestrian traffic is concentrated. Such common walk shall have a minimum width of 3.5 feet, and all mobile home stands shall be connected to the common walks, streets, driveways, and parking spaces by individual walks. They must include a complete drainage plan, include a time schedule for development that'll demonstrate the applicant's readiness and ability to provide the proposed services. Said time shall be for a period not more than 1 year. We've asked that they label the rear side setback. We've also asked that they include the maximum building height allowed, include the size of the proposed sign. Each mobile home is required to have to be spaced a minimum of 25 feet apart. The proposal does show the houses being spaced 15 feet apart, so that would require a variance from the regulation by the Board of Zoning Appeals. We've asked that they show each home's designated lot area. The limits of each mobile home space shall be clearly marked on the ground by an iron pin. Location of space limits on the ground shall be the same as shown on acceptable plans. No space shall be smaller than 5,000 square feet. Any variance from this regulation would be required to be approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Each mobile home lot shall be provided with an outdoor living and service area. Such area shall be improved as necessary to ensure reasonable privacy and comfort. The minimum area shall be not less than 200 square feet and shall be paved. Any variance from this regulation is required to be approved. So that one would require a variance. On the photo that was provided, it shows a bit of a porch. So that one, it seems that there is a proposal to include that outdoor living space, but it would need a variance from the paving requirement. You'd have to prove that like a paved patio versus a porch is pretty much equivalent. So they've also required that tenant storage in the form of permanent buildings shall be provided for each mobile home at the rear of the mobile home space. Any variant, show the location of all proposed fire hydrants. So each mobile home park shall be equipped with fire hydrants spaced not more than 500 feet apart. And the water system shall be capable of providing a required fire flow of 500 gallons per minute for a minimum of 1 hour. Include the length of the street. So dead end streets shall be limited to a length of 500 feet, and their closed end shall be provided with an adequate turnaround with a minimum diameter of 80 feet. Show location of outdoor sitting areas. Attractive outdoor sitting areas shall be provided appropriate in size, type, and manner to the needs of the residents. Where it is anticipated that children will occupy the premises, well-equipped playgrounds of adequate size and number shall be provided. We've also asked that they show the location and width of a landscape buffer along the periphery of the property. That landscape buffer shall be not less than 15 feet in width, except that a minimum buffer area from any public street shall be no less than 20 feet. And within the landscape buffer, there's required to be a fence of 6 to 8 feet high, and a landscaped screen shall be provided. The fence has to be opaque, and the screening shall be year-round evergreen of 4 feet wide and at least 4 feet high. And yeah. So those are the requirements.
Let me ask, everything, I didn't hear anything about a tiny home in anything that you just said. I only heard mobile home. I was provided with documentation such as what you just read off, but was provided only for tiny homes from the previous person in this office. So, I mean, there is another ordinance for tiny homes, and I didn't hear anything about the square footage requirement of the tiny home. I mean, all that stuff was provided to me before I started this.
I'm not sure what tiny home regulations you're referring to, perhaps the building codes requirements, if you're,
That's what I was asking earlier. I know that Mayor Chambers had brought up that and everything. That's why I was saying, we have a couple of members of the planning, of the county court here. I was never made aware, or was never aware that it actually ever passed the county commission. If it's never passed the county commission, then it hasn't become law, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
And that's why I was asking about that earlier, because I'm like, I had heard that
Yes,
and everything. Now, what Sam may have done is that was the proposed thing, and he may have been thinking that it was.
He had told me that it went through, that's the reason we
And
started.
it could have, to my knowledge, I don't know, that's what I'm saying, I don't know. David, either you, David, y'all remember any of this? Well, you weren't on the county court at that
No, but I was
time.
here.
Yeah, you were here on the planning commission.
I don't ever remember it coming out of planning.
It was he copied it out of a big book that he's got. He made us copy.
It could have been when Mr. Kirk was talking about the code.
Do you have a copy, do you have a copy of what you received?
Because
Blue and white.
it has a, yes, and it has a section for tiny homes.
Okay.
so those are the building codes.
Right.
It's not.
As far as site development,
Yeah,
this would
Two
be
different things.
considered a mobile home park, and that was the standards that we would review it under.
I don't see no sidewalk.
Well, I mean, obviously, they've been working under the, what, Sam had provided him whenever, some time ago, whenever this is. And so they're learning some things tonight. That's one, that's why I gave you that
Yes, sir.
paperwork, so that you would have it. The other thing is, regardless of whatever, as Keelan read to us, this comes here first and then goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I'm sure made aware
Yes,
of
sir.
that
Yes,
and everything. But hopefully this first step, as y'all learn some new things and
Yes,
stuff, you might wanna look back and see, see
Excuse me,
some.
ma'am?
You might want to adapt to the two things you've learned.
Yes, ma'am, what did you say?
That's what I was saying, to adapt to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you might wanna,
You might want to learn these standards that you've just been given tonight that you didn't know about.
Gotcha.
yeah. That's what you
Don't
talking
want you
about,
blindsided.
adapting your
But you know
plan
what
to
to do.
whatever you just learned.
Yes.
It's hard to have a plan, something you
Yes, sir.
didn't know about.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nolan?
Did they say anything about they could have a little storage building in the back or anything, or they just 400 square foot, that's it?
It did show storage buildings, I think.
I'll make you see.
I don't recall seeing them on the proposal, but there is a requirement that they have storage facilities.
For each lot.
It does.
Yep.
That's what's
Let me find it.
That's another thing I noticed, was that it requires a storage building for each one of these modular mobile homes, but yet it's truly not a mobile home, so they may not need it, so that's another thing that might.
Well,
You wouldn't build it if you don't have to. It
well, we
has to be
can,
by-
that would be a
and the other
Board of
things that-
Zoning Appeals.
Right,
Gotcha.
right.
Yeah, because
Things
like,
that-
yeah, well, I mean, because it's not a mobile home, so it shouldn't fall under the mobile home requirements, because it's none as such. Just
Well,
like.
I will say for that,
The building codes are gonna be nothing to reflect a mobile home, if you don't build them, they're manufactured in a factory. So I mean, how would that?
I can agree with that. However, your alternative is that it's considered as a single family home and you're allowed one on this property.
What's that now?
So the other alternative is that these are considered as single family homes and you would only be allowed one on this property. You would then have to subdivide the property and the minimum lot requirement is 6,000 square feet. So your number of units would be like halved. So it is in your best interest to go forward as a mobile home. I mean, that's your financial decision to make, but the alternative is to be considering it as a single family home, and those are much more restrictive regulations.
You call it whatever you like.
Well, I think my suggestion here is for y'all to look at it and see what's best for y'all financially and what you can do with this new information. And then come back to this, because we're just gonna send it to the BZA anyway.
Yes.
That's all we can do.
All right.
And, I don't like it when you just learn new things and haven't had opportunity. Plus, had Mr. Dillahay been here, he may have been aware more of this than we know of.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, another issue that I have is looking at the under the developmental standards, the B section, the mobile home parks, it says no mobile home park shall be approved which contains less than 5 acres in an area, 5 acres in area and less than 10 mobile home spaces. They're right over 5 acres. I mean, they're at 5.01 acres. That's a.
Well, I agree, but again, that's why this would be going to the Board of Zoning Appeals to, because they were, I would assume, I'm not trying to speak for you, I'm just going to assume that they're wanting some modifications to these anyway, so that's why it was going to.
59 lots versus.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
That's quite a bit.
Randy, do you have any more? Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
If Jackie might want to get with Ms. Rosalie.
Yes.
And, he can, does he have your email?
Rosalie does. She
Rosalie.
can pass along.
He can talk with these two ladies and then advise you more exactly as to your options.
All right.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, that being said, what do we need to do with what is before us right now?
Defer, I think, the same thing as with the.
Do we need a motion for that?
Campground.
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
Well, I'll make a motion to defer this site plan until the individual has time to get all of his information together.
Well, it's got 30 days, doesn't it?
So deferment will take it to the next meeting.
So it's deferred to the next meeting.
So 30 days.
So we have a motion on the floor to defer this site plan until the next planning commission meeting. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Bates. Any other discussion? Jim, is there anything you want to?
I've got a final flat.
Okay. No, I wasn't skipping ahead. I didn't know.
Concerning that, the only thing I've got to mention is the math don't work out. It's gotta be 5,000 square feet, they won't give it.
They're gonna have
Just so you know.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to defer this for a month and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Doesn't pass, it is deferred. All right, next is final plat approval for Dustin Marcelino on Western Avenue, 6.19 acres for 6 lots in the 7th Civil District. We looked at this last month.
I'd say, we looked at it. This is the third time. Maybe this will be shorter and easier than everything, right?
All right, Jim.
I'm just gonna let it be. I mean, y'all, if you got any questions, I'll answer them, but I believe we about beat this horse to death, so we'll try to keep it short and sweet.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Jim, or do you want to go right to Keelan?
Go right to Keelan.
Okay.
All right, and I'll be quick.
I have made the edit that you needed made.
With
The certificate, I did have the wrong
excellent.
certificate on the original that got sent out.
Well, that makes this even shorter. So the applicant is requesting final plat approval for a 6-lot subdivision at unaddressed property on Western Avenue. Property is identified as tax map 19N, Group E, parcel 30.03 or 02, and consists of approximately 6.19 acres and is zoned R1 residential. Surrounding properties are zoned for residential uses. The property is within the Hartsville-Trousdale Water and Sewer Utility District and does have a 8-inch sewer line that extends along Western Avenue and along the eastern edge of the property, and an 8-inch water line that extends along the margin of Western Avenue, and a 12-inch water line that runs along the eastern edge of the property. Western Avenue is considered a local road. So the minimum lot size for the R1 zoning is 12,000 square feet, and all proposed lots are greater than 12,000 square feet. And Jim has corrected the comment that is in your packets, so disregard that. So staff does recommend approval.
Anybody have any questions for Keelan? Yes.
One question for Jim.
Yes,
On lot 6, is there enough building envelope outside the floodplain?
Yes, there's enough building envelope for you to put a small mansion, but I mean, not if you're gonna put the Taj Mahal. If you're gonna put a normal size house, yes. Perfect. No.
I don't think that's required.
Because they're not putting in a additional road, it's an existing subdivision. It doesn't
It's
get sidewalk.
existing infrastructure, no new infrastructure.
I didn't think that was be nice. The county shot that down.
I know, but in a way, it would be a sidewalk. Well, I would say that nowhere, but actually, it wouldn't be, it'd be the other side of the
Sidewalk out in the
street.
middle of nowhere is where it'd be.
I don't know, at the end, well, yeah, because it'd be a sidewalk to the old
Over
post office.
time, it will be.
It actually would be a sidewalk.
It was one small sidewalk out in the middle of nowhere. But over time, it'll be more added to it, it's going to have a big lawn.
I don't know, I don't think that'd be. Any other questions for Jim and or Keelan? Keelan has recommended approval of this project. Discussion? Motions?
I'll say.
Motion by Mr. Gregory to give final plat approval for this. Second by Ms. Bay. Any other discussion and or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Does pass. Okay. That ends the business section of the agenda for tonight. Next is our discussion period on commercial building design guidelines and codes and zoning discussion. What we have been talking about for several months, the last couple of months, has been the materials and things like that for commercial and industrial businesses going forward. I think I lose track. We asked you to bring us something back this month.
Yes,
Okay.
so we are, continually just rolling through the items that we identified in the very beginning. This first item that I have, the purpose and intent, that was an addition that we decided on last month, that we felt it would be necessary at the beginning of the chapter to include a purpose and intent section. So I've provided a couple of examples of different purpose and intent statements that are in the beginning of the Coopertown Design Guidelines, the Portland Design Guidelines, and the Sumner County Design Guidelines. So, they're really, I have less to say about this one since it is, intent is a bit more subjective, it's a bit more up to you guys. So I hope you've had an opportunity to read through them, but if you have any comments or anything any preferred of these three samples, which one you like on first pass, or just let me know what you think about them.
Whatever I would suggest would be short and sweet, which is Coopertown. I can, obviously the last sentence in the Coopertown thing, I don't think applies to us. We're not establishing standards for streetscape design, landscaping, we're not doing any of that in this. What we're trying to do is, what the first is, to ensure a unified and compatible development and provide consistent level of quality throughout the community. Guidelines are intended to provide guidance to owners and developers when making application for new construction and additions and modifications of existing developments where applicable within and I would change town to urban service area.
Yeah, I would
Or Tri-County.
definitely make up whatever to make it sure it's applicable to.
I think we need to look at this in a way that we can actually get it passed.
So that being said, Mr. Chairman, listening to several of the commissioners, They are really pushing back about taking this outside the urban area. And
I think that's why I say you have to look at it as a way to what's gonna pass. Can we get something passed?
Although
Once you get something passed, then you always have the opportunity to add to.
I 100% agree with this commission's stance that it really does need to apply to the whole county. But based on the feel of the commission right now, I
It's not gonna pass.
don't think it will pass.
So, I mean, I see no reason for us to send something that most of us sitting here know is not gonna pass.
I have gotten the impression that it being limited to the Hartsville district, there is a very good chance that it would pass, and several are actually excited to see what we come up with. But that is the big pushback, is putting it out into the county also.
Well, that would be, and again, just like with anything we talk about, we'll vote on it. Right now, we're in the discussion phase and stuff, and so we'll do whatever the will of the commission is. But my thinking is, I'd like to get something passed that we can actually do, and to me, it's always easier to amend something than it is to actually get something passed going forward.
If you can get it started there and then maybe spread it to the county, because we do need it
Exactly.
outside the city.
Exactly, and as
narrow
they
sight.
tend to see more things, like if the gentleman, Mr. Barber, goes ahead and develops down there, they see the 231 intersection area developing more, they will see the need for that more. They don't see the need for that more right now. They thinking of it more as the city limits.
Well, it's because they've got this on.
I understand.
They don't live.
So my suggestion would be, that where applicable within the urban service area, is what I would put there, and then skip that last line.
Or is this whole product going to be focused on the Hartsville district?
I'm sorry.
Or is this entire product going to be focused on the Hartsville district? So,
Yeah, the building, the commercial and stuff.
so that we change the title of it as well, that's what I'm asking.
Oh,
Be sure to confirm that parallel with what's planned.
We don't really have any industrial property in the county as yet. It's really a commercial project, because the county, to my knowledge, the only industrial property left in the county is Tennessee Central, isn't it?
You're right.
And the M that we have down by the river, off Cemetery Road.
Nobody knows about that.
That's true, I mean.
It's on the zoning map.
Well, just because it's on the zoning map, there are a lot of things on the zoning map that's not correct. Again, I think simplicity will go a long way into getting something done.
Yes.
And I think, so we have been presenting these as two separate mirror ordinances, one for Hartsville, one's for the Trousdale zoning ordinance. So, there maybe isn't a need to be specific if they only choose to adopt, say, the Hartsville ones into the Hartsville zoning ordinance, therefore it's only applicable within the Hartsville, the urban services district. I do think, though, for the sake of clarity for the commission, for the county commission, that it would be beneficial to include an applicability sentence within that just says it is new construction, commercial, industrial in the urban services district, just to outline it very clearly, even though.
Any remodels that go over 40% value of the property.
Well, so that's what we need to discuss is.
Well, see, it has that in here, to ensure unified and compatible development and provide a consistent level of quality throughout the county. These guidelines are intended to provide guidance to owners and developers when making application for new construction and addition and modifications of existing developments. I mean, they said that in here. Again, whoever's got any wording suggestions, please insert wherever. To me, that's pretty simple right there. And the reason I said urban service area is I think all of our county commissioners know there's an urban service area, and that's town, and they're,
So what I'm hearing, so for what I bring back next month, we like the Coopertown example. We like the sort of generalized, purpose language. we want all the corrections to obviously make it applicable to this community. And then as far as the applicability, we're going to maintain as it has in the Coopertown for new construction, additions, and modifications. Do we want to include additions?
Do you want to include a percentage or something like that?
Do we want to have a minimum limit on that? Because I can tell you from experience with these things that the idea that like a small, like I just want to throw a shed on the back of my thing and all of a sudden I have to do all these things, that kind of language can stop something like this really quickly.
Already on the books, we have the 40%, if your remodel increases the value of your property more than 40%, you've got to bring the building up to code. So this would fit right into that.
Actually, according to the IBC, it's 50%.
50%. So,
is that something we would want to specify? I think
it should be in that way it's clear, it's in the code
it's already in the building code that if you do more than 50%, remodel, adding value more than 50% of the property.
And I don't want to act like I'm against anything. I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Yeah.
But it's
My
almost
goal
like
is-
double dipping.
is
It's
passage.
already in our codes.
And I can say
And
that
somebody may say that.
the ADA ordinance that we sent forward, the reason it got shot down is, well, it's already law, why do we need it in ours? It's already in the building code. So if it's already in the building code, this now makes it part of the building code of doing the zoning facade, so it's already there. Would it not be?
well, if the sentence in the building code is that the building code, or that any modification or addition that increases your building value by 40%, you are then required to bring the entire building up to the code, and it's in the building code, that is only talking about the building code.
Okay.
So it is not talking about the zoning ordinance or the regulations of the specific community. So if you want that language to be applicable here, I think that it is in your best interest to have that sentence specified in here to say that if, modifications and additions that increase building value by over 50% require that you bring the entirety of the building into compliance with the zoning ordinance, or that the commercial and industrial design guidelines, something more specific.
We'll back your back.
I gave up trying to predict.
I can.
Many
That's a
decades
toss-up.
ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we have two that would give us the best insight. I don't know.
What I'm saying is that adding another step to
It's
what
explaining.
she just said, that pertains to the building code, and the building code only. And then
Well,
with
that's,
that,
Rosalie, you apparently have it on your phone there, am I correct?
I have some of it, yes.
Yeah. So does it have a sentence in there that says that it has to come up to the building code, or does it mention zoning or design?
Construction requirements.
Okay,
So that
That have one.
so it says come up to new construction, so if we do this and say this is for new construction, that does mean that they have to come up to new construction.
I think that is only talking about its own language. They are different regulations.
Once a zoning.
One is for
what's allowed.
zoning, one is for how you build buildings. Zoning ordinances, we don't touch them, they don't touch it, like,
Okay.
it is its own code.
I just want to be
Yep.
100% clear on that, so that when I have to stand before them and give a synopsis of this, I'm clear and don't misspeak.
I mean, and that's talking about, safety and welfare, bringing that, fire suppression and those important details. We're talking about design guidelines, so these are zoning requirements. These are a different thing than what that is intended to be discussing.
So I guess in my mind, at 50%, if you're adding 50% of the value, your value of your building, are you not, is that not as close to new construction on the building as you're gonna get without literally tearing the whole building down and starting over? That does help get all the older buildings coming up to code.
That's certainly debatable.
I'm looking to anyone, because at this point, when you go around the block here between coming, from River Street to Broadway, up Broadway to McMurray, McMurray from the high school all the way out to, you all go out to the highway market there, Oldham's Market. The buildings are already, 90% of the buildings are already to what we're asking, the existing buildings. The majority of our buildings do have brick faces. There's only a handful that have, the metal face that we're saying will be prohibited. So however we do it, our older buildings aren't gonna have to, do much to comply.
The problem I would see would be more in the downtown area.
Yeah.
If somebody trying to rebuild one of these, it wouldn't take much to get up to 50%.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna make them put all this more into a building that's 100 years old and may not be worth it.
So we've only got, 2 buildings that have siding on them? So you've got Regina's has siding, and then down here where,
I'm talking about even our old brick buildings, if we make them come up to code on everything with this percentage, the owner may say, it's cheaper for me to tear it down and build new.
But they're already a brick building. There's nothing for them to bring up to what we're doing here.
I just don't want that to.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. But that's what I'm saying. We've already got 90% of the buildings are already.
So you're saying the 40% would only apply to the exterior, which this.
To buildings.
What we're looking at tonight talks to.
Like if Pretty Quick wanted to do a full remodel of his building, well, then he would have to put one of the preferred, 60% on the front of his building.
But this doesn't speak to any electrical upgrades or any of that type of.
That's building code.
That's building code separate.
Okay, I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
And we will make it very clear in this purpose and intent paragraph that this applicability sentence is referring to the design guidelines. So we're not discussing building codes, we're not discussing setbacks or any of that grandfathering stuff.
Yep.
That all has its own state requirements. It's talking about design guidelines.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
so.
what they need.
Well, so
Make it
I.
too complicated now.
I do a lot
I agree with you, Carl. I agree with you.
Yes. Well, and so.
Dealing with a bunch of lawyers.
That's where I think that we do need to be careful about the language. So from what I'm hearing, short and sweet is preferred, so we can make it as simple as possible, absolutely. We want to include an applicability sentence. That sentence is going to say that this only applies to new construction, modifications or additions that increase the building value by over 50%, and are only applicable to commercial and industrial buildings. I think that there's also slightly a pitching that can be done to the commission. So when people look at that 50% number and may balk, that's not a lot. I think that the pitch is then you don't trigger these by wanting to do small modifications. So if you're increasing the value of your building by 50%, you're committing yourself to a major remodel. And so by that, you are protecting, the people who don't have the money to bring it all the way up to code, who just want to add a little something here, a little, a new sign, little things.
One of the favorite terms of some of our commissioners is government overreach.
Well, and I think that this is protecting those people from government overreach. So it just needs to be marketed as a glass half full versus glass half empty.
I think you should attend and just explain that.
There's a grant, Mayor's Chambers got.
I have
To
been a
fix up
planner
the front of
for
these buildings, so they were only $2,000 or $3,000 to sign, to upgrade, paint them, or, stuff like that, so.
Because if you're gonna increase the value in your remodel of 50%, you already, by federal and state and county law, have to bring your building up to code. So that's already in place.
I don't think anybody's arguing with David, it's just, do we think this?
No, I'm just wanting, it said that that's already in place, so as I present this to the commission, we're only talking about having to meet the requirements on the front if you're gonna do that much of a renovation. And 90% of the buildings already meet that. So we're just trying to get everyone up to the same level.
This pretty much just entail new construction.
New construction and major overhauls.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, another pitching thing, as you've said, 90% of the buildings are already, you know, already meet a lot of these standards. These standards are designed to reflect that historic character. So these historic buildings that we're trying to preserve, you know, they're not going to have to actually do very much to meet these standards. So, you know.
What do you think, guys? I'm gonna include this, was it 40% or 50%?
It's 50.
50%.
I would want it to match whatever the building code states. It is, it's just less confusion, everyone's at the same level.
And again, that's my whole goal, is as less confusion as possible. So we do have an opportunity to pass this section, that's why I want to you know, to do this. Everybody agree with it?
And I can bring us something, again, my intention is for you to see this 2 more times, so I will bring a cleaned up version based on the comments from tonight to next month, and then the month after that, we'll bring the finalized version to vote on.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, because you did serve on the commission for quite some time, when they voted down our header for the ordinance, our placeholder, personally, I don't think they really accomplished anything, but just when we pass, if this gets passed, it now becomes just a floater in there, something else for Rick to clean up. Is there, how soon can we bring a header back after it's been rejected?
Well, I think you can bring anything back once it's been finalized, you have that opportunity. I would try to get this through and then come back and clean that up at a later date. Okay. It's easier to explain, okay, we've now passed this, we need this to help to put it in, to make it more explainable, to make it more legal.
Yeah.
I think they could, you know, I think that would come closer to passing. I wouldn't want to do them together.
Because that does seem to, that's some of the sentiment that I heard, kind of putting the cart before the horse. Right. With doing the header first, and then. So
that's why I say I would just.
Well, and my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that they were interested in seeing sort of a full packet, correct?
Yeah.
With everything together. So within context, the header will make much, much more sense, especially with this purpose and intent sentence immediately following it kind of sets up the whole chapter. So we can definitely kind of present them all together as one thing. And then it would also just be one ordinance, so they wouldn't have to adopt each individual thing. They just. You gotta take the chance. I mean, you can do it however.
As separate ordinances.
Okay.
But we present it all on the same.
That is perfectly
all
acceptable.
those other ones and stuff?
No, they've already shot those down. I'm just saying.
But they're out there. They're ready to come back whenever it's needed.
Yeah.
You know, that was my point to begin with. We have things. If a slew of people descend upon the county commission, a neighborhood or something, say, well, then that's when you or David or somebody has the opportunity to say, now, we have this, we have this, we still bring this back up.
Exactly.
And stuff, you know. And so we have a finished product there, should they want to go with that at that time.
Exactly.
So, okay. All right, Tina, what's next?
All right, if we want to keep going, the next thing I've got is roof lines. So I've provided three examples from Portland. So Portland does not specify specific roof lines, but does require that it be appropriate to the building. It does require that the roof lines be the same for the entire building and that roof mounted equipment must be screened. Gallatin only requires that roofs be compatible with surrounding development. And then Springfield has very specific requirements identifying a minimum overhang, detailed features, materials, and screening. So you've kind of got 3 examples along the spectrum. We can kind of take a look at how detailed you want to get with those requirements.
I like Gallatin.
I like Gallatin too. We're on the same page there.
I would have to say after the discussions on the school's roof, the first one there on the Portland of the flat roofs or low pitch would definitely be something that would get a lot of scrutiny.
In not wanting them?
Not wanting that.
Okay. Because this Portland one encourages them for larger commercial buildings.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Anybody who puts a flat roof on it just itching for trouble. Like that road.
There's always rain.
It's like you said, that's cheap to put up.
That's the reason they do it. It's the cheapest to start
Way to
with.
do it, but you don't.
Yeah. But to me, the Gallatin part is only requires roofs to be compatible with surrounding, that we require roofs to be compatible with the surrounding development. That would mean that that building would fit in with the current architectural designs of what's around it. I can't think of anything either simpler or better.
do we like the, so I know I've included that bolded sentence, which is like a summary, but do we?
Just the bolded sentence again.
Okay,
I'm
or we
talking-
have the
I'm talking
sentence.
simple, if that hadn't registered yet.
Well, and it's pretty much just the same thing, but expounded upon in the larger sentence. Okay, yep, we can, all right.
I'm right, I'm just being honest.
Do we all agree with that, sort of one simple sentence for roof lines? You can honestly just tuck it in somewhere else. But if we're good with that, that's what I'll bring back.
I do like the little paragraph in Gallatin's that is right below that.
About screening?
Well, the architectural styles may vary, buildings of proposed developments shall be compatible with surrounding buildings. It just gives a little more of what we're doing with compatible surrounding development.
I like the fact that if you're screening from the disability too.
All right, so now we have a couple of options.
Y'all keep adding, you're getting away from simple, I'm telling you.
I know.
I'm just telling you.
So,
I mean, there's a lot we would like to, and again, I'm not being, believe me, I'm not trying to be negative to any idea. I want something that we can pass.
But if it doesn't have anything that's gonna enhance the value of the property we're trying to protect, it doesn't do anything.
What better than a roof compatible with all the surrounding development?
Because in that statement, honestly, if the roofs around all have screening already in place.
Yeah, they gotta meet
Do
it.
they have that or not, though? Do we have exposed ones today? And we don't want that, because you could end up with more exposed things out there, not screened. That's what I'm asking.
I can't think of anything going around, in my mind, going around looking at different buildings of, I can't remember anything that's gaudy or everything kind of has the front facade, kind of goes above the roof and then the equipment's behind it, so that is a screen.
We've got that old redneck look.
We'll make this call.
I mean, we're just an old southern town.
It's very.
Codes and zoning officer would.
Well,
It's gonna be all on him, he can say if it is or isn't.
That's usually how, when you leave it
Or she.
vague, that's how it works.
Or she.
But then that's very vague, though.
and I will say, with the difference between the compatibility with other roofs and the screening, you might be getting into some semantics there that the screening isn't necessarily the roof. So we might be talking about the roof could be defined as the top of the building. Screening then is some additional architectural architectural thing intended to hide those AC units and that sort of thing. So the equipment isn't considered the roof, the screening, some may argue, well, it's not part of the roof, so I'm compatible, but I don't have to do that.
And am I wrong in stating that, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but should I want to build something and I want to do something different, I could ask to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and explain that and get a variance, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, what I'm saying is, someone who's wanting to maybe go above and beyond, I mean, the way I see it, if you're building around here, it's all pretty much flat roofs.
Yeah.
But if I'm a builder and I'm looking for something gonna last for years, I don't want a flat roof. I might want a pitched metal roof.
Right.
And I could go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and say, I'm willing to put more investment in here because I don't want a roof that's gonna be leaking in 10 years. That's my thing.
Then go with that, like you said, the bold part in that first paragraph after it, I think that just kind of flushes it out.
All right.
It still leaves it vague, but gives enough guidance to the Board of Zoning Appeals of
But the building and code, your chief can, prove that either way, right? Before you can go building.
They can go so far, but
They can make a determination of whether or not they can make a determination of what compatible means, but if there's anything like debatable, they are welcome to say that that's not compatible, and then it requires a variance. So they have that requirement to a point, I guess. They can't allow for variances, but they can interpret what compatibility means.
that is why the next hire for our building codes enforcement officer is very important.
Well, it always has been, but hopefully, after we met with Jack and everything, that's gonna move forward. I do think we need someone in that building. That state guy pretty much put it bluntly. You know, what you're doing right now is not sustainable. He pretty much made it clear.
All right, so what I'm understanding is we are leaning towards one simple sentence that pretty much just says roofs are required to be compatible with surrounding development. We are not looking to address screening, correct? We're gonna leave that up to subjective determination. Okay, and then we're not going to include the details such as like with regard to massing, scale, proportion, blah, 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 blah. So we're just gonna leave it very basic. And then.
If that's what y'all want, if the majority agrees with that.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one question. As Mitch was talking about leaving that compatible in the kind of the open-ended of that, do you have any suggestions on wording to kind of correct some of that?
I don't, I was just curious if it's all his there.
I mean, I can honestly hear that same word.
Well, I think it's vague for a reason, so it gives their Board of Zoning Appeals areas to hear someone wanting a variance or something, and even maybe the codes officer, some leeway as to what to approve and stuff.
I was just curious, you know, he goes with one and then another one asks for it, and decide to decline the other one, send the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then we're gonna have a, you know.
And that can happen.
At that time.
And typically, that's what happens when you begin looking for new people.
And I didn't mean to ask that question to put Mitch on the spot. I can
No, I know.
I can honestly hear a certain commissioner asking that exact question. So I was hoping that you might have some.
I don't, I was just curious, I mean, I was just thinking what somebody else can bring up.
Well, so my suggestion, my only thought is that we do have a couple of, for the architectural standards, we do include, you know, its own individual sentence saying that any variance from these requirements requires approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So even though that, you know, that is true for any regulation within the zoning ordinance.
I think adding that with this sentence, I think that helps.
Would that help? Yeah, okay.
I like that idea.
Okay.
And it still keeps it simple.
Sure, yeah, I'm good with it. I'm like you, the wordsmith down there, I thought maybe he could come up with something. But that does take it right there.
It does.
So we have to rely on you and David to, you know, is it too wordy? Is it not simple? You know, things like that, you know, what you think and stuff.
I'm gonna give it my best guess, but
I understand.
there's been some stuff that I thought would go with no problem with just that.
Well, I will bring us a sentence to look at next month, and we can debate it again then, when we see it out of context as well. All right, are we ready to move on? Do we want to do another one?
Yeah, what's the next?
All right, well, next up, we've got dumpster screening requirements. We have Wilson County, Goodlettsville, Portland, Sumner, and Lebanon. Many communities have these requirements. Most of them Most of them require that it be high enough to block the dumpster from sight, and that it be made of like a masonry or some sort of solid material. But each one goes into different degrees of detail. So I have bolded a couple of areas that I thought were, I don't know what I'm thinking, worth looking at for like applicability to here. Sorry, it's 9:00. So within Goodlettsville, they do have the requirement that dumpster and refuse collection should be located in designated area that's not visible from the street, and should not be located between the building facade and the street. They also have the requirement that garbage collection areas should be enclosed by an opaque material on all four sides and should have self-closing doors. Where dumpsters are enclosed, the screening should be at least 2 feet taller than the dumpster. Where topography may expose interiors of garbage collection areas to view, screening should be correspondingly taller. Portland has a very similar requirement. So garbage collection areas are enclosed by opaque materials on all four sides. The screening should be not visible over the top of the enclosure. Same sentence about topography. The Portland does require landscape plantings to be required around 3 sides of the dumpster to soften the effect of any fencing. The landscape areas are required to be a minimum of 5 feet wide. And they also require that the dumpster enclosure screening material shall be consistent with the building materials of the building. I will say from my time in working there, that sentence got a lot of fight from developers. That one was one we had to.
That's a whole lot of money for a trash can.
It's a very ugly trash can, so I understand the thought behind it. That is the one sentence that we just always fought over.
So an idea to kind of save your breath and save time. I'm hearing murmurings that everyone really likes the Sumner County.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Keep it simple, evidently.
we'll jump to that one, but I would like to propose adding, so at the end of where it says air conditioning units shall be screened, put in there by preferred or limited materials, and then and located such that not visible from public way.
What do we think about that?
What in Hartsville is not visible from the public way?
I had, where it says garbage bins, we need to change the language to trash receptacles, or, I know that we do not have, personally have recycling.
Or just take garbage can out altogether.
But I think that there's an issue, I've had an issue come from me, not so much bins.
Or refuse receptacles?
So,
Yeah, okay.
so we could just update the language.
I mean, one, if you've got the county, the garbage department is gonna have a say in telling them where they put it so that they can get to it and dump it.
Right.
So that's gonna be a part of it.
So just leave it as screened and take the location part out of it then? And just let Cliff handle where it's located? Because you're right, it's gonna be how access to, for the dump truck.
Again, my.
But isn't there a difference between stowage of the devices, storage of,
And a temporary.
and a temporary relocation for on pickup day?
I would say there, yeah. As your, what areas would not be seen from, like behind food land, that whole strip back there.
But they got plenty of land, I'm talking
They
about
do.
mostly, you know,
Yeah,
all your schools are out there. The high school's not, because it's a newer built building,
Yeah.
so it's around to the side. But, you know, the
Big
others
Wheaties is because
are
you
out
got
there.
both sides.
The new dollar store, I mean, it's screened pretty nice.
It is.
But it's out there where it can be seen.
Well, no, because it is screened.
Okay, oh, okay, so.
Yeah, so it's screened and located, so because it's in that enclosed.
I agree, it should be screened.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I was thinking you was saying they all gotta be somewhere where you can't see them.
Yeah, I have no problem taking that last part out and just end it with screened with preferred or limited materials, and just end it like that.
What are our thoughts on that?
Sounds good to me.
So removing stopping that sentence shall be screened, and then we'll say with preferred or limited materials and then end it there?
Because they're gonna have those on site anyway, that's what the building's being made out of.
Or
Am I not
should,
limiting
would
it
it
just
be,
Well, not limiting it just to the preferred, it gives them a cheaper option.
I agree.
So it doesn't look like we're trying to beat them up.
Right.
back to the location stuff, would it be helpful, in your opinions, to include a sentence that say, and located in an approved area by the Public Works Department or something like that?
I think it would, I think that goes without saying anyway, because they put the dumpsters there and
Okay.
made no, I think that would be fine. I don't think we get any pushback on that.
Well, my only thinking with that is that this is going to be something that we are approving on a site plan. And if we don't have a requirement that the Public Works Department gives us a letter or something like that, they may come in and go, well, that doesn't work. And we went, well, we already approved it. They didn't have to come before
They
us.
do need to have
for
a say in that,
dumpsters.
they need to know that if there's room for them to back out, come
Exactly.
around, all of that type of stuff, they, you know.
What about the air conditioning, maybe misunderstood?
I didn't know it was gonna include the air conditioning.
It is,
It's in
actually,
there,
yeah.
it's in there, it's in air conditioning, it's ground mounted.
Just cause it's in there don't mean we have to do it. When you talk to my air conditioner guy, he tell you, I got too much crap around my air conditioner.
Well, and we are discussing, this is commercial and industrial.
Yes.
At the same time, though, I'm agreeing with, because, I mean, every air conditioning person I've ever talked with, and Amanda might be able to mention something of this, you know, having that airflow around it, if you put rock walls around it, rock or brick, you're decreasing that airflow and
That's right.
efficiency of the unit. I mean,
Is there any consideration of landscaping? I know a lot of places require landscaping around.
if we took the air conditioning unit section out of there and then add a separate unit for air conditioning using vegetation for screening, I think that would make more sense. It'd be cheaper for them or take it out altogether.
That was gonna be what I said.
I'm good with taking it out altogether.
Limited material, why do we? Sorry, I thought that was kind of unfair. That gave you a limited opportunity.
Well, the limited materials is the building materials. So we're gonna remove air.
Some of y'all learned this real quick. I'll have it all figured out by next Monday, I'm done.
Everybody agree with, and you don't have to, removing air conditioners, period.
Yeah,
I think so.
that makes sense.
It just keeps in line with keep it simple method.
Okay, so just to recap, we prefer the Sumner County sentence. So we're going to request or include that it shall be screened by preferred or limited building materials. So I'm just looking at it. We don't have any height requirement. So it just says shall be screened. So we're leaving it at their discretion of how high that material needs to go. We're gonna change the language from garbage can to refuse receptacle or some sort of more general.
Receptacle and refuse storage.
And they're gonna get it high, they don't want people coming by and throwing their household garbage in their receptacle. They don't do it too well, if people here save themselves a trip to the dump.
All right, then we're also gonna include the sentence that it's located in a convenient location as approved by the County Public Works Department, or some similar.
Yeah, I think that should be.
Yeah, I agree.
And then that gets added to the site plan.
And that gives them, they can't come back and say, well, y'all haven't put it over here, where-" it just keeps both of them, keeps the business owner and the Public Works Department from fussing.
And then we're gonna remove air conditioning units altogether, but we're gonna leave the propane tanks, above ground oil tanks. Those are the other two,
Yeah, because the above ground oil tank could also be a grease tank, you know, from the restaurants. It would be just as unsightly as anything else.
Yep.
So I agree with that.
Okay, well, if that sounds good, that is what I will bring next month. And we can debate it again when we get to look at it kind of in its more final form.
Guys, again, I appreciate everybody working with this. It hasn't been easy. Just as a reminder, if everybody still wants to, we discussed the timetable of sending this to the county commission will be after budget, because they've got to, everybody knows how difficult it can be to, do we get anything else passed during budget?
I didn't even schedule a meeting for codes and zoning this month, just for that reason. It also kind of gives a cooling down period. Let's kind of come back at this with, more information and better examples for them. When we do the commercial building appearance, definitely having those more detailed descriptions of what the materials we're talking about.
Yeah.
Especially on the prohibited.
Do we think
So-
there's anything additional beyond the handout that I gave to you guys with the photos and the names?
I think making that classification on the cementous board, where that's the, it's the fiber board with just the cement covering versus the cement all the way through the board.
Okay.
So that way that you can show that difference between hardy board and cementous, because a lot of people who have no idea about building materials are just gonna look at that and say, well, that is hardy board. And that way we can make that distinction between the two. Because that was the one that was the most confusing for all of us to try to figure out. Everything else is pretty straightforward on that list.
Okay, Ms. Rosalie has something to.
So I had handed everyone one of these pieces of paper here. I went ahead and instead of putting the table on the agenda, wanted to give you an update on what the status of the planning office is. It gives you an idea of what last year's statistics were, how much we collected in building permits, how much we collected in adequate facilities tax or impact fee, and what the budget was. So as compared to what we brought in and what our budget was, you can see that we did a lot of work. And then this year, you can see up through the end of April, we're on track to do very similar to what we did last year. And the building permits, the number of building permits has not slowed down. I still have 3 sitting on my desk that I need to finish before tomorrow, or they're coming in to pick them up tomorrow.
So these fees haven't slowed rezonings down at all?
I'm talking about building permits for what I have. As far as rezonings, we just had the one that just came through this evening with Mr. Cook. As you can see, for the rezoning collections from last year and what we've done this year, and looking at what we have spent just alone on our publication fees, this is maybe a third of what we've paid out. I mean, it's been very, very expensive, and in fact, what's proposed for next year's budget is $10,000 for publication fees. The amount of money that it's taking to do a public hearing for all of the things is very expensive. But thank goodness, now with starting May 1st, we only have to post it one time in the paper. And as you saw, we have one sign already out there for.
Y'all see the sign? Doesn't it look good?
So, and then again, there's our fee schedule that started May 1st.
We adjusted in codes and zoning subcommittee and raised the fees up to where they are. And once we presented it to the commission still was talking that we didn't raise it high enough.
Probably didn't.
So.
And that makes my same point on this, is we get something passed, and then as they see things going, it's easier then to amend and make it better.
Also talking with Rick on how he wanted to kind of clean things up. So like the table that we made, the land use table, instead of leaving that as an ordinance, moving that as an appendix to the codes and zoning ordinance, so that as it has to be amended, you can amend the appendix without having to go back and amend the whole ordinance. So when he brings that forward, all that'll come through us also, once it comes to the subcommittee. This fee schedule was also one of those things as an appendix, so that you wouldn't have to adjust everything, you could just adjust the line in the appendix.
That's where hiring somebody like him,
I never thought of
in the future, saves us a lot of time and effort and stuff.
And so I'm really excited. He told me that he had already,
He was
I know.
several years. You know
I've met
him?
him several times,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
he, back middle of April, he'd already had the first 4 or 5 sections already cleaned up and just moving through it going 2 of them, just going down the line of them. So by June, I'm excited to see how much, I'm hoping he's, at least a quarter or a third of the way through it already. So, as he mentioned as he was going through it with us in codes and zoning, it was awesome. I mean, he already had his binder from back when he was representing us and talking with us. He already had everything dog-eared already from those days, and he was just able to flip right to, well, here's a section that might need to be addressed, and I'll talk to y'all about, and he was able to go, it was really nice to be able to already have someone who already was entrenched in the issues that we're dealing with, to be able to bring this through. I don't know, he's gonna bring it to us as a solid document, redlined, here's what's been changed, here's what's, where things have been moved to. Presenting that to the full commission. I am all ears of any suggestions.
Well, I think when we get to that point, basically I think you've got a simple explanation there. What is being presented to you is putting the county and the city planning codes together into one document. No more 2 documents, everything is in one, it affects everything. This will do it. Again, I can't think why they wouldn't think that's, like I've been saying, making it simple.
And his suggestion was actually having, so on your zoning, instead of having an R4 versus, something that would be in the county but not in the city, having there'd be an H3 or a T3. So it's still one single document, but you still have them separated out, so that the things that we have for like the commercial stuff, that would only apply to the HC1 or HC2s, not the Ts.
And there'll be obviously some different terminologies that
Exactly.
come around
Why
because of
can't he present it? Why can't he present it?
That's also been a thought that I've been kicking around.
That may
He's
be
been doing it for
worthwhile.
years.
He is on contract,
Yeah.
so
He's
that
a
might be
hometown
something.
champion.
Yeah. Might keep it.
Yeah, he's been doing it for years.
they're too young,
Yeah.
most of them.
He probably will always mandate it.
They might do that. Guys, again, I appreciate all your hard work, and it is hard work, and it's usually thankless work. But do want you to know that you are appreciated. We have a motion to adjourn.
Yes, motion to adjourn.
We're adjourned.